Hey, recovery family. I hope you're all having a great morning out there. Let me just adjust. This is my new Zen room. I decided with this stay at home, I wasn't going to do a whole lot of house projects. I was for sure going to turn my guest room into a meditation space. So that's what this is. You'll notice the topic for today is affected family members, what it's like to grow up in a household with substance use. And it is a recovery duo, but I'm the only one. And I just want to take a moment to honor the significance or maybe the symbolic nature of that. There is a lot of shame and stigma attached to not just parenting, not just substance use, but the two of them combined. So if we just start by talking about parenting, there is a phenomena in our English language that it is the only language that does not have a positive label for parenting. So I recognize this as a mother. My friend's a lactation consultant, and we were talking one day about all of the struggles and mom guilt that we feel, and she said she brought that back to my awareness. Here we have terms like bulldozer parent, helicopter parent, absent parent, neglectful parent. There's not a label that just says, hey, you know what? You're doing a good job. So parenting alone has this huge cloud of shame, and I can only speak from the perspective of a mother because that's my experience. But then we're going to add on to that the shame of substance use. It's no wonder it's a difficult topic to get people to talk about. But before we even get into this discussion, because shame is such a huge part of being a parent and being part of a family, I think it's really important to note that my parents are my biggest foundations, my most wonderful supporters, the reason that I'm the person that I am today. And I can say without a doubt that I'm proud of who I am and where I came from, but that there were some struggles growing up. And those struggles have nothing to do with my parents as people. They're just results of substance use, both mild, moderate, and extreme at times. So I just kind of want to put that out there. The whole discussion is with empathy and love. And I appreciate you all for understanding that and for being there. I see Kendall and Lynn saying good morning. It's nice to see you and all our other friends here. Yeah, so I guess we'll just start with my story. I get to talk about this fun topic from a couple different angles. I am 8 years sober this January, and that makes me the parent of a child and a parent who struggled with substance use and made some choices in my life that were impactful on my own child. But I'm also an affected family member. It's hard for me to talk about substance use without talking about society, right? I grew up in a family and a culture of alcohol, meaning family reunions, birthdays, going to mini golf. It was just a cultural thing. Like drinking was meant to enhance those experiences, right? It was fun. And I know this isn't unique to my family. You see it all over the media and movies and television. However, in my family it was a little extreme. You kind of always knew that if you stayed late at the family reunion, you should pop some popcorn because there might be a fight. And I'm not even mad about it because there's some great stories, right? Like there are some wonderful, hilarious things that happened. And I think that's another part of my family's culture is we tell stories to deal with difficult things. We make jokes to deal with difficult things. And that has been such a blessing in my own personal journey through life, let alone my recovery. Um, and I just want to encourage, since I am doing this on my own, go ahead and leave some comments so we can interact and discuss. Like, I'd love to hear more. In planning for this, what I realized was, wow, I talk to a lot of other people who have struggled with alcohol use and misuse of other substances, and it feels so validating. I don't often have those conversations with other people who grew up in homes where there were family systems that encouraged use, or I don't want to say encourage, maybe that's the wrong word, like glorified or normalized, depending on the situation. So it was really refreshing to talk to other people and be like, wow, this isn't a me thing, it's a we thing. It's other people who have this situation. Um, and right, like Vinny says, there is no manual or user guide or to-do list for parenting because this is my take. I'm not a child psychologist, but our struggles make us the people we are. And if our parents were perfect parents, we would be extremely imperfect people. We wouldn't know how to face challenge or grow from it. So our parents really give us the first opportunity to overcome challenges, to deal with conflict in relationships, and to give us a reason to separate so that we can be our own human beings. Um, Another thing I heard someone share once that I thought was really important is we often try to fill a God-sized hole with people, and our parents are just people. We can't expect them to be our end all be all. Um, yeah, so it's nice. I'm also seeing Carly out there celebrating the 8 years. Yeah, that is an accomplishment. Some days it gets complacent and you forget about it, but also relating with the parents. So let's go back to this story. As a child, I didn't really think there was a such thing as alcoholism. There was just alcohol, and everybody loved it, and I couldn't wait until I was old enough to drink it. Add on to that the culture of our times. I remember watching Pulp Fiction when I was in fourth grade and thinking there was nothing cooler than Uma Thurman, and that I would give anything to grow up and live that lifestyle. Like my goal in life was to use drugs. Um, Fast forward to my high school years, goal achieved. I was drinking, I was using substances with my friends, and I didn't view it as a problem because, like I said, I grew up in a family system where alcohol was just kind of part of the celebration. And we had issues, particularly financial issues and some conflict issues. But my home was such a supportive place full of love. My parents never argued with each other. Um, they weren't abusive to my brother and I. But occasionally I would go to a birthday party and not get picked up on the rest of the kids did. Or, we'd go to a family party and we're supposed to go home, but we'd spend the night because, no one was able to drive. Looking back, thank God no one drove with us kids in the car, but those were things I didn't associate with substance misuse. And I don't even want to label it alcoholism because the truth is, alcohol is legal and some people do drink it in moderation, but it's when it's used outside of moderation, it's a misuse, right? Those things affected me as a child. But I'm not going to pretend that other children don't have similar struggles, whether their parents were using or not, right? But it was embarrassing. I do remember one time a friend of mine really wanted to spend the night, and I was an anxious human. I guess I still am. So I had all of the normal anxieties of like, what if my house isn't nice enough? What if she doesn't really like me? But I finally kind of swallowed those down and was like, all right, after months of being friends, I'm gonna let this girl spend the night. I think I was in like seventh grade. And I remember her coming over. It was a summer day. We were playing outside, had a beautiful time. And then it was like night. And she went to turn on a light and she's like, oh, your light's broken. It won't turn on. I immediately knew, like, oh my God, the electric bill didn't get paid. And that was terrifying. So I made all these excuses. I remember telling her, "Oh no, my parents are so cool. Like we play this game where we pretend we're camping and we get candles and flashlights." And I went with that lie. I don't know if she ever believed it or if I really even needed to lie because I was 12. Like my brain then is very different than my brain now. Um, but things like that, I look at it now and I can celebrate the impact that it had. Right? That creates a type of resilience that you don't find every day in your everyday lives. The other part of this is empathy, right? When I was a teenager, so when I got really heavy into my own use, I did end up going to treatment. When I was just 15, outpatient at Parkridge, I was so angry. I mean, I had nothing nice to say about my parents or to my parents. I was actively working on trying to get out of the home. I did spend a little bit of time at a shelter in Rochester for teenagers. I just hated them and I blamed it on their struggles. Fast forward, I'm a mom. I have a 14-year-old, and he absolutely hates me sometimes. I'm like, I'm working a program, going to Al-Anon, I'm trying my best, I'm making sure you don't want for anything. Why do you hate me? Well, I did some research by talking to friends and looking up on the internet because that's my favorite thing to do. Guess what? Teenagers hate their parents. So as much as I like to say that that's the perspective of an affected family member or child, it really is just part of the experience. And I think it's really important that we're talking about this. It's difficult. Not only did I have a hard time finding somebody that would come on live and discuss their own kind of family history. When I looked up articles, some of the other duos, if you've seen them before, they have great articles and they go through the steps. A lot of them focused on the negative impact, associated traumas, high ACE scores, or adverse childhood experiences. Or if not, they had language that was really abrasive and I wouldn't want to put out into the world because it just perpetuates that stigma, makes us feel bad about the fact that we struggled. And that's really the heart of it. We struggled. I was not immune to what my parents were dealing with. I found myself on the path to recovery because my whole life, my finances, my social life, my relationships, and most importantly, my internal self went to a really dark, negative place as a result of my own substance misuse. Yet, we don't talk about it, right? And I guess that's like the hardest part about this particular conversation is I love my parents more than I love anybody. And I would never want to paint them in a light where anyone would look down on them because my mom's my best friend. Like I still call her almost daily. Whenever I have a situation, she's the person that I'd go to. Just this week, like I said, this is my new Zen room. I had to put in a light fixture, terrified of electric, but I called my dad and he walked me through all of the steps on the phone. And I think that's the thing, right? Like there's so much shame and stigma around substance use that just by admitting our own is one thing, but to put that label on other people, you're opening them up or making them vulnerable to a world that doesn't necessarily treat you kindly. How often is celebrating recovery difficult in circles of people who aren't in recovery themselves? And that's the truth of it. Mo chimed in. She says, talking about my family and how their enabling normalizing of substance use affected our lives is difficult. She wrote more, but I just want to stop there. Those family systems can enable and normalize a lot of things. And I want to focus on this language piece, right? I remember Matt and Yana last week during their talk about affected family members. Yana brought up a great point about that term enabling. It has such a negative connotation. You hear it and there's judgment. Even if when you're saying it, there's no judgment. It's just the way it's been used. It's bringing all that judgment on it. And where does enabling come from? A deep desire to help. You want to support those that you love. And for what Yana was saying, and for me, what it comes down to is that behavior of enabling comes from a good place, and it's a result of lack of education. So let's ask ourselves as a society, why is there a lack of education? Because conversations like this feel awkward and difficult. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm feeling very awkward and this is difficult. So just opening up the conversation is going to normalize this piece. When we're so used to the normalization of hiding our secrets, protecting those we love even to a default, and supporting those we love even to a default. This brings up another great thing. There was a huge article this past winter, I believe, and a big celebration because Sesame Street had a whole episode about a young girl whose parents struggled and were in and out of treatment. And I thought that that was beautiful. Like, how many children are living at home, watching their parents and loving them and knowing that something is a little off, something is different than the families of their friends, or something could be better. So I really love that. Mo went on to say, I think my relationships with my family as an affected family member and a person in recovery will take many years to heal. I had the most healing with an ACOA counselor. I've never tried Al-Anon, but I've thought of it. Yeah, and that brings me to some resources. Because of the normalization, I never really considered myself an alcoholic. So if we go back to my story, I was in a very dark place. I started treatment at the age of 15, but only because I was legally mandated. I didn't think that I had a problem. And I continued down that path till I was about 28. And that's when I finally decided that I was going to stop drinking, but I still didn't view it as a problem. It was creating chaos in my life, and I had a specific goal I wanted to achieve, and I understood inherently that I'm not the type of person who can just moderate, right? Like, I either have to just stop drinking or I'm going to continue to drink it all. So I decided to stop drinking temporarily for a goal I was trying to achieve, not because I had a problem. And lo and behold, I had more money, better relationships with my friends, higher self-esteem, and I was removing myself from situations that had caused trauma in the past. So it was 2 years into my sobriety when I said, oh my gosh, I have a huge problem. So I think that's another big point of talking. As an affected family member, your lens for the world has a different scale, right? Like, your definition of problem drinking or problem use or addictive behavior has, maybe we could say, like a higher tolerance. So for me, I wasn't getting DWIs, I wasn't getting in fights, I wasn't getting in a lot of fights. Everything else was crumbling. When I looked around, that was okay. It was normalized. So it was hard for me to identify that I had a problem, which I thought was unique to me. But getting involved in my recovery community, I realized regardless of where you come from, that's part of the disease of addiction, is explaining yourself out of it. Like, oh, but I didn't, but I didn't, but I didn't. And it's really, whenever it's impacting your health and well-being, it's time to take a look at it. So after, let's say maybe 6 years of sobriety, I realized I was still unsettled. And I looked around at my recovery community and saw other people who were living more productive lives. They seemed to be full of more joy and more gratitude. And I still had like this dark hole inside of me. And that's when I realized I needed to actually work some type of program. And I've tried them all because, I never wanted to commit to any of them because it was, it took me years to even admit that I had a problem. So it was going to take me more years to admit that I needed help. And when I did start working on my own recovery, like Mo mentioned in her comment, I needed more. So I did join Al-Anon. That was my first program. And learning about my behaviors was extremely helpful. One of the things is, when you grow up in that home, just like enablers do it out of love, you know who your parents are when they're not in active use, and you love them dearly. And then you see them struggle in active use, and you know that it's not them. even if you don't have the language of addiction, you just know in your heart that that's not your parents, that's not their true essence, and all you want to do is fix it. And that's where codependency is born from, is this great love and need to fix. So Al-Anon was super helpful, but I've also tried the Adult Children of Alcoholics, the ACOA, like Mo mentioned. Recovery Dharma has codependency groups, codependency focused groups, if you're not into, the 12-step programs. And there's just lots of resources out there, and conversations like this one today are going to be what bring them out into light. So yeah, and then the last piece is, just recognizing that even in sobriety, I'm still a qualifier, right? So I am a mom of a 14-year-old. Fortunately, for most of his life, I've been sober, although he does remember a few really dramatic conflicts that would not have occurred without alcohol from his younger years, the age of 3. So I don't want to minimize the impact that substance misuse has on children in their developmental years. But I hope more than focusing on what can happen, that this conversation opens the door to how important it is to recognize it, to discuss it, to share our stories, to get rid of the shame, and to build a community around support and love and empathy. But even in sobriety, I still have addictive thinking, right? Like, sometimes we'll buy cookies. That's my go-to lately. And I'll say to my child, like, hey, you need to hide that bag of cookies. That's an expectation I'm putting on him to help me because of my own struggles, right? And it's a really small thing, but that's how my addiction shows up for me in little ways throughout my life. And if I'm not willing to think about it or to take it into check, then that can have a negative impact on not just my child, but anybody that's around me. So as somebody with an addictive personality, I know that I need to continually review and take inventory of my habits. And I've also tried to be proactive. I have him signed up for Alateen, and he loves it. We don't often talk about the past where my use lives, but we do talk about life and behaviors as it is today. And sometimes it's really really hard to listen to the opinion of your 14-year-old. And right now, when he's not in the room, I can calmly say that I appreciate it. But in those moments, it's really difficult. But that's parenting, right? Like Vinny had said earlier, we all just do the best that we can. So if you have any resources or want to be a part of the discussion, please feel free to share them. If you have any suggestions for guests or topics we can have on in the future, reach out. And last but not least, I appreciate all of you for being there, for being here, there, wherever you are listening, and for being a part of our community. Like, Recovery is all of us, not just the people you see on the screens. And we look forward to bringing more of you on our videos. Also, if you or someone you know is struggling and could use a coach to help guide them through their own recovery journey, don't forget we do have our peer services. You can call the number 622-4975 or Facebook message us. With that, have the best Thursday you can, and we will see you later.